in person, we have Jason Brand. Good afternoon.
Hi, thank you, members of the committee. Can you hear me? I'm speaking on my own behalf in support of S2471 and H3829. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11 of the Constitution stipulates that only Congress has the authority to declare war. Yes, since 1942, and after decades of undeclared aggressive military interventions and invasions, including every war of this century and the global war on terrorism, the legislative branch has continually abdicated its responsibility for deciding to change the state of the nation from peace to war. Clause 15 delegates to Congress the power to call forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions. Yet Guard troops have had continuous and extended roles in overseas conflicts, particularly since 9/11, supporting more than 1.1 million deployments to the Middle East and elsewhere, upwards of 900,000 men and women, and more than the Marine Corps. Guard and reserve units made up about 45% of the total force sent to Iraq and Afghanistan, and received about 18.4% of the casualties. As you all know, our Guard has been deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan with several units deploying twice or more. And they're also in permanent rotation to the Horn of Africa, and were just sent there in July. Our troops just returned from Poland. Notably, at their send-off in April, Major General Keefe told them their mission was to, quote, make sure Russia goes no further. We have not declared war on Russia. The reality is that all of these missions are absent any approval or consultation of state legislatures, and all contradict this constitutional intent of state control over their militias. As detailed in The War Horse in 2022 in their multi-part series, perpetual deployment of Guard members from Massachusetts have taken a heavy and tragic toll upon their return. Senator Fatman, in fact, at the last hearing of this committee, related that 5 of the 170 soldiers under his brother's command had committed suicide upon their return. And this past year has been the highest operations deployment tempo of the Guard since 2010. Our Guardsmen and women are needed for disaster relief, emergency response, and local security, whether it's battling floods along our coast, responding to nor'easters, or even mitigating a school bus driver shortage during COVID. Deploying them to overseas conflicts just depletes state resources and weakens domestic preparedness. As our nation's first, it's fitting we return our Guard to its original purpose and purview. Its fighters' first loyalty lay with their local communities, and where their lives are not wasted on fighting the undeclared forever wars of D.C. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Yes, Representative Durbin.
Yes, Jason, how you doing? Thank you very much. So I've heard a lot, and I think I'm getting to what the senator's getting to. Being in the reserves, I had a lot of Guard counterparts, and when you talk to them after a while, you understand that they take on a lot of missions from the federal government because they get funding from that. And I'm also curious, we hear a lot about the disaster relief, nor'easters, bus drivers, all the other stuff, but we have a Guard base that has F-35s. I don't think F-35s are going to be doing anything to help in Massachusetts when we have those type of emergencies. Those have a specific cost. Those have a specific use case. So my concern is if we sit here as Massachusetts and we were to do this, then you have these F-35s out there that can't be deployed unless there's an act of war, and we can't really use the services, then the federal government isn't going to give the money towards them to support that operation. Then what's the need for that base?
I would only say that I can supply a testimony from Maryland where there is a well-documented and cited, with full of citations, that talks about the myth of federal defunding. The gentleman who spoke virtually did focus on that as a imminent threat. I just don't believe it. That's been thrown around in a lot of states where adjutant generals have shown up and claimed that funding defunding would occur. To answer your question, this has been introduced in more than 30 states. It's passed the Idaho Senate, the New Hampshire House, Virginia, one of their chambers, and Arizona. It hasn't gone to a governor's desk yet, but it's growing momentum, and it has broad-based community grassroots support from Guardsmen. I think future testimony or other testimony virtually, we're going to hear from Major General, who was a commander at Fort Devens for 35 years. So I think he can speak to that more in depth as well.
So if I can just go, just a little bit longer, is how does an F-35 help with what we're trying to say that the Guard should do? Because I'm sitting here and an F-35 basically has a war capability type of mission. It's not here for domestic, maybe domestic defense, but not to help, like if there's a hurricane or something like that. So I understand that base, nurses, security forces, those people can go out and do it, but the main purpose.
Yeah, I don't know. If it could be
So that's my
given
issue.
to another state, I don't have an answer for what happens when a F-35 sits there, and that is a, I look at the suicides, I look at the fact that we're violating the Constitution. Those are my crux issues on this.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question.
Yes, Representative Arriaga.
Just my question, if you happen to know the National Guard's mission, like every branch has a mission, right? Protect by land, air, sea. I don't know off the top of my head, but the National Guard's mission, is it to protect the state?
It has a dual mission, which I believe Senator Velas would confirm. It is a dual federal state mission.
Thank you.
This doesn't put a stop to them deploying. It only asks that the title, that it goes through Congress and the legislative branch. That's all. And if it does, then they can be deployed.
Thank you.
So what do we, and again, I appreciate everyone coming here today offering testimony on this. And one of the challenges that I have is that we have a duly enacted federal law, essentially Title 10, that provides a framework from when a president can federalize the National Guard, right? Duly signed by the President of the United States. National Guard can be federalized, nationalized, however we want to say it. And I know you were here, sir, and you just referenced it before. You know, you've got these kind of this Article 1, Article 2. And what I'm really stuck on with this is, you know, the constitutional question. You just raised the Constitution. What I'm stuck on is how a governor of a state, when you have a president, whatever that process is, invoking Title 10, whether it be the F-15s and soon to be F-35s in my district at Barnes or elsewhere, right, to go overseas to participate in some type of a conflict. What legal authority does Massachusetts have to say no? That's what I'm stuck on. And again, we thank you very much for answering the question. No states have done it thus far. To your point, different states are contemplating it. But I would be really curious about our ability when a federal statute is invoked, specifically Title 10, to in essence say no.
The Supremacy Clause.
See, I
That
would.
supersedes legal statutes. The
So-
Constitution is supreme.
So what I would say in that regard is that the Supremacy Clause actually makes it harder, actually bolsters kind of what I'm getting at, is that you've got this duly enacted statute from the federal government competing with, if presumably this were to pass, a state statute. I would argue the Supremacy Clause kind of bolsters the questions that I'm raising, right? You've got potentially a direct conflict between a president saying, hey, Massachusetts, I want you to go to fill in the blanks. The governor of the Commonwealth, based on this law, if it were to go forward, saying, in essence, no. And I just have real questions about the legal permissibility of that.
I'd like to see it go forward and to the point where these questions do get brought up and to let the lawyers, debate these issues, because there's two versions to be debated or two arguments to be made on the Supremacy Clause from where I'm sitting and the one you mentioned. So I'd like to see it get to that point. That's the proper place where this should be debated, and I think it should also go to the general court, and it should be heard by the entire body.
One thing I wholeheartedly agree with what you have said is that, to me, it is absolutely insanity the way that the federal Congress, and I'm going to use your word because I think it's the right word, has abdicated their authority in this space. As was correctly pointed out, there hasn't been a declaration of World War II. There's this other legal framework that we haven't gotten into, the War Powers Act, that we could talk about, but it's just, there are some very legitimate legal, national security, and constitutional questions that I think we need to contemplate as a committee on this bill. But I really thank you.